It's a river. Okay. So we have got two answers. One is lake. At least others should tell me that if they feel it's lake, they say okay, it's lake. If they feel no, it's not lake, it's a river, so we should go with them. So we have got two answers: lake, river. Actually, it's a lake. So, Dr. Kuratulan, we cannot hear you. I think you still are mute. I can see your body language that you are telling something. Okay, so where is the lake? Okay, if you want me to tell you the province, as I always start with, or the country. Okay, I forgot to ask you, is it in Pakistan or outside? It's
Pakistan.
Pakistan. Simple. The correct answer is Pakistan. Yes, okay. Which province it is?
Balochistan.
No, it is not Balochistan. It is in Sindh. So you are getting very closer. Yeah.
Near to Balochistan.
Near to Balochistan. Actually, it's away from Balochistan. It's not in the border of Balochistan and Sindh. That area is like, uh, without these water lakes and all these things. It's actually a natural lake. I'm giving you a hint now. The biggest hint I can give you is this is it about its what do you call this? Its nature. Actually, it's a fresh. It is the largest freshwater lake in Pakistan. Okay, now you should get to the name. It is Pakistan's largest freshwater lake. It's at a distance of
Manchar Lake.
four. Yes, it is Manchar Lake. I think somebody. So how did you know it? Just tell me. And who is this? I'm hearing to.
I am
Who said
Sir
Manchar?
Himayatullah.
Himayatullah. Himayatullah bhai, your answer is correct. It's Manchar Lake. It's
Yes.
actually 4.5 hour away from Karachi, like 320 or 315 kilometers from Karachi. It's Manchar Lake. So yes, it's Pakistan's largest natural freshwater lake. So we should actually we should know it. So now moving on to our actual game. So this is pre-test for you guys, and now I want to know, I want to hear from you that how would you like me to proceed with this pre-test? And there are two ways. Option number one, that you note down these questions, or we will keep the screen for you all guys here, and one after another, as much as or as many as participants can just reply in their own words. One-liner answers are also acceptable, but if the answer requires some more detail, then you have to definitely go for more details for these four questions. This was option number one, option A. Option B, which I also prefer, is that we will keep moving slowly with our today's presentation. What you can do, you can just note down these questions. I will keep this screen for you for like 1 or 2 minutes, so that we are not wasting your time. So you can note down these four questions. And as we move along with our today's presentation with different slides, definitely you will get answered to these particular questions in hand. All right. What you have to do, what I expect from you, to just whenever you feel that there's any particular slide or any particular part of discussion that we would have, we will have is related with these questions, you can just note down or jot down your answers to these particular questions. And before finishing our today's session, I'll give you few minutes for everyone, like 2 to 3 minutes for everyone, so that you can uh, present your answers. That would not be a presentation. That would be like, you can just simply verbally read from your paper and tell me the answer. These are option A and B. So I would like to hear from you guys that what you want, option A or B. And this is your pre-test quiz. There will not be any post-test quiz. So it's your choice, whichever way you want to deal with it.
Sir, I
So
think
let me
B is a good option.
B is the good option. So anyone
जी अस्सलाम
else?
वालेकुम सर बी ऑप्शन ठीक है
Assalamu barakatuh. Yes, I think this is Salman, right? Dr. Salman?
जी सर जी सर
Uh, I can recall your voice. Okay. So Salman has again also gone for option B. So if no one is having any objection for option B, so we will just keep moving with our today's session, and we will be at later end when we'll be approaching to the end of our today's session. That time we can just have discussion, brief discussion on each of these four questions. So if all of you have noted down these questions, so then I would move on to next slide. Is it okay? Shall I move to the next slide?
यस सर
Of course, sir.
Right, right. Let me move to the next slide. Okay. Right. So from the literature, we have now come to know that it's a cyclical process. At the same time, it serves as a central guide for all educators and as to what is essential for teaching and for their learning. So that every student, every learner uh, whom they are teaching has access to rigorous academic experience, number one. And at the same time, it's a very sophisticated blend. You can see all these things written down on the left side. So it's a blend of educational strategies, course content, learning outcomes, and educational experiences, assessment, educational environment, and individual students' learning style, personal timetable, programs of work, and all these things are blended in it. Before we move on to next slide, I would like to ask you that I think you people have got your a session related with curriculum earlier, maybe in the past, right? So then it should not be a very tough task for you to deal with. As we know, as we hear from everyone that it's a cyclical process, at the same time, there are different views also that people call it, it's like, coin of two sides. And basically in Latin, curriculum means a path to run in small steps. So by curriculum mapping, we make choices about the pathway for our learners. So mapping is a step-by-step approach for both short and long-term curriculum assessment plannings for any institution. It's like a coin. So why we have kept a coin here in this slide and showing you only two words, maps and review. So you should keep in mind that whenever you hear it, or if you have heard it or you are going to hear it in the future, this particular word curriculum mapping it should strike to your mind that there are some maps. Map would have blend of all these things that we earlier have told you for your institution needs, institutions goals, objectives, and students learning needs, and all these things, the cluster of all these things on one side of the coin. The other side of coin equally has the weightage in terms of review process. So it's again like an amalgam, or as we already see, if you say it's a cyclical process, it moves around, starting this institution goals, objective, coming to the student learning needs, then teaching environment, teaching method, teaching strategies, the students' grades, and all these things. And alignment in between them has to be of paramount importance, of course. And then the review process. Review process for what? Review process for all your activities that you have put into your maps, which you are calling curriculum. Why it has to be there? It has to be there because every time you may ask, if you are administrator, right? You may ask, if you are head of department, you may ask your colleagues, you may ask your peers to contribute for their lectures, activities, for their sessions, and details of the sessions, and their assessments, all these things. But if the review process is not there, there might be some gap still in some courses that these courses are not targeting. Or on the other hand, on the contrary, if you are not having gap, but you still might have redundancy, repetition of the same content. That is just not, if not required, because there's little repetition is required for every institution along the process of students moving from one year to next to next to next to next. Those are some very basic and essential information that you want student to just keep reminding of. So you keep telling them again and again in a repeated fashion, repeated manner. That's but natural. That has to go along. But it should not be on the cost of losing something that is very important, right? So keep in mind, it's a coin having map, and in the map there's everything, all cluster, all things are being patched together. Same time, review process has equal weightage. So equal weightage is being shown here with this particular slide, that one side of the coin is having review process, other side is having your map of your all curriculum activities. For you guys, I don't think that these basic definitions of curriculum mappings are required, but I just want to give you impression that if you start searching for definition, you will get enormous number, infinite number of definitions. I don't say any definition among these are wrong, and this is not the only one page. Now we have to move for the next 4, I think 3 slides. All these slides are also dealing with the definitions of curriculum mapping. So why has been spoken so much in the literature? So it gives us impression that it's something very, very significant. It's something very important. So if you want, you can just select any of these definitions to utilize for your pre-test as well, for your quizzes as well, and for your future practice as well. But keep in mind, whichever definition you are going to opt for today, in today's session, again, you will have to just justify that why you are taking this definition, right? Because any definition is to be there for you to work if it is in the context which you are working, which you are practicing, right? So choose wisely your definition. This is the next slide again with the definitions, and you see again we have 10 definitions here, and 10 were in the previous slide. And if you still move on, you can see these all are definitions defining the curriculum. This is the basic component of our today's discussion today. So we don't want to spend much time. And by the way, I'm sure you must have been gone through from the resource material that was in the form of 2 very important articles. One was Amy's guide for curriculum mapping, that was by the huge giant in the medical education field, that's Dr. R.M. Harden, and the other article was also very important. So I'm sure you people must gone through those articles. If you have just even read those 2 articles, you'll be capable of at least dealing with this concept in theoretical way. Practically, you might already been involved in teaching and curriculum related activities. If you are not so far engaged, at least those 2 articles and today's session might give you some impression that is it your piece of cake or not. So now moving on to our next slide here. So like we all know, map, we heard it again, map and mapping. Mapping actually is nothing but a visual representation of information, and it can be in the form of tables, it can be form of figures, flow charts, or simple textual information could be there. Analogy to geographic mapping highlights the ability of maps in whatever format or discipline to provide the links that connect one piece of information to another. Similarly, curriculum mapping is an increasingly common concept these days, and we have seen that how much has been spoken in the literature, and it's actually within the field of education now, so much in the field of education. Globally, countries are now identifying actually core aspects related with public health that are deemed very necessary, necessary for education requirements for public health practitioners, for educationists, for educational institutions, and they are continually developing courses and material, and so that they can address these competencies and the changing needs of the public health workforce everywhere. Again, it's a consideration of when, how, and what. So we have to know its main function are to tell you that what is being taught, when it's to be taught, what has to be taught, and also the stakeholders, different stakeholders make outcomes different. I mean, for a stakeholder who is a student, its outcome are different, its main function would be different. But as umbrella, all main functions and outcome has to be similar. They don't have to get so much away from each other. So that's why we always say that whichever capacity you guys have, whichever capacity you are currently dealing your current job, current educational activities, or your future endeavors, which you think that you will be opting in your near future. The idea today you are going to get from today's session is again very important. So don't feel that if currently any one of you is not related in educational activities, so it will not work for them. No, definitely, because now you are working on your fellowship in health profession education. So definitely you would be having some inclination towards teaching and educational activities. So I must say that the window through which this particular topic of curriculum mapping can be explored, it may include the expected learning outcomes, curriculum content, or various areas of expertise covered, student assessment, learning opportunities, learning locations are also very important in terms of learning resources. The timetable, the staff, people involved, and curriculum management, and how it's going to manage the time, spacing, and all these things. And the most important, the students themselves. This slide here looks very simple, but it gives you a very simple understanding about what actually curriculum mapping is, because it's a reflective process which carries or which encircles three main domains of educational venues. And in educational venue, you all know the teaching and teaching method, assessment and assessment method. These are the most important venues. So we can call teaching, assessment, and methods. So methods are related with teaching as well as with assessment. And this reflective process actually lets you or lets teachers know what has been taught, how it has been taught, and also how the learning outcomes were assessed. So for the main elements, if you are going to think about the main constituents, main elements, you have to just start knowing that the pupil are its main constituents, main elements. And when we say pupil, they are learners, they are teachers, faculty, students, staff, faculty, administrators, all these people. For the activities, we can see that you have to know that the learning wherever is taking place, the lectures wherever taking place, the small groups, self-study, assessment events, and the courses. Now coming to the courses, so which any institutions are bound to teach. So you have to keep in mind, whenever you are going to just start working for curriculum planning, these elements must be kept in your mind. And also the program learning outcomes, and for that, objectives and outcomes. They are very important, which are actually set mostly by the administrators, but sometimes you are also given this opportunity to be part of that team as a faculty member, as a teaching faculty member. So these are to be governed by you as well. So, and these always been governed in terms of program learning outcomes. We call them PLOs, program learning outcomes, and CLOs that have been counted as course learning outcomes, and which we shall learn about in the later part of today's session, in the next few slides. Now coming to the main constituents that most of the curriculum maps actually, they are illustrations in the form of tables. So whenever you ask for any curriculum map, it has some background where many people have worked together, sitting around on a table and on the computers. They must have got all the spreadsheets worked on. But in the final form, final stage, these would be presented, can be present and must be present in illustrations in the form of tables. So as adapted from Harden, curriculum mapping is the process of associating course outcomes with program learning outcomes. And then you have to align elements of courses with the program. And what does it do? It ensures that it is structured in a strategic, thoughtful way. And that would definitely enhance student learning. So coming to the CLOs, CLOs or course of learning outcomes, when we say who means the participants, the learners, provider, you mean the physicians, and what do you mean, what you want them to do? So what works for asking yourself what do you want them to do? And it describes the expected observable actions, behaviors. And when we say how, this term how, this question how is about how much or how well, means how well should the actions, behaviors be done, and how well should the teaching be absorbed by the students, which are our stakeholders. So if you people are interested to learn more details, then the best way to go in detail is Bloom's taxonomy. You must have heard about it. So if you want to search it, you search it with the name Bloom's taxonomy of educational objectives. It was created in 1956 by Bloom, and it's of very, very what do you call this? Is credible. It's very credible information on this topic. So, and they have got traditional framework for structuring learning outcomes, and they have got level of performances in Bloom's cognitive domain, which include knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evolution. And on the other hand, program learning outcomes, these are actually learning outcomes that answer the questions. For instance, what will students know or be able to do at the end of the lesson, book, or any course that you are dealing with. At the same time, if you are to deal with what do you call this, the main important characteristic of your mapping plans, that's alignment, which for, because if you have got on one hand your course learning outcomes, on the other hand you have got your program learning outcomes, but if they are not aligned, so you are not going to achieve anything. Because it's alignment, basically, what is alignment? Alignment for, I mean, in the context of education, alignment is a process where you get coherence and consistency between your intended outcome, that what you intend your student to learn in formal curriculum and through learning activities, the assessment methods, and so on. So if, as we have just learned it earlier in our very initial slides, that right after getting your course learning outcomes, program learning outcomes, match them, align them with your vision and mission and objectives and aims of your institution, or if you have any broader umbrella of framework, like, we have Saudi-made framework, we have Can-made framework, we have Malaysian framework for educational, professional and educational activities, all these things. So in Pakistan, probably, I think the Pakistan Medical Dental Council, Higher Education Council, Higher Education Commission, they have got their own, set of skills and set of, what do you call this, abilities that they want students to get graduated with. So after getting all these things aligned, the main player comes in is the review for that particular process. And you will later on know that it's done at every level. Actually, we cannot say that review is at the end. So review, because it's a cyclical process, so we don't know where we are getting involved and which level we are getting involved in this particular practice. So review actually is done at every level. You can be also reviewer for your contribution. And what it does, it spots any redundancies, flaws, or you can say if there's any misalignment, that probably you have thought that we have aligned the course learning outcomes with program learning outcomes, but could be misaligned. So it would give you chance when you are reviewing it, even if you write a piece of paper, if you write a paragraph, you write an article, an essay, if you keep reading it again and again, for every next reading, you find something new, or you find some flaw that was not there earlier for your reading when you read it for the first time. So getting an episode, what do you call that, a holistic review, which is very important. It will help you to get you misalignment and flaws. Hence, curriculum mapping is a cyclical process. That's why we say there's not a single point where you must look for or you start looking for your review timing actually. So, Wiggins and McTice in 2005, they say whenever you are working for curriculum alignment, you should keep in mind that you should start with end in mind. Like, fruit is the end product for a tree, but that also works as a PLO or PLO's program learning outcomes. You have to keep in mind that what are your institute's program learning outcome, what your students, you want them to get graduated with, or you want your students to get pass with in that particular course, in that particular program. So that's became kept topmost position. So that's why we call it end in mind. And this is the first thing. You have to start keeping end in mind that where your journey is going to end, where your journey is going to lead your students to. So when striving for alignment, it is again critical and crucial to start with the end in mind. Some experts refer to this as backward design. So you can see here the fruit is often the last part, as I told you. But when you are mapping curriculum, this is where we need to start. And what does it mean? It means that what you want your student to do, what you want your student to know or feel at the end of program. So that's why it's very important that once you know that answer, you can start to align the course objectives also with the program goals, and finally ensure that the instructional support and materials in terms of your syllabus, in terms of your lectures, didactic lectures, small group activities, clinical skill sessions, practicals, and later on formative and summative assessment, and the main instruction plan. So these all are aligned with the final program goals. So this is why it is important to keep end in mind and keeping it first while starting your curriculum mapping journey. So for you, if you want to start, what you have to do? You have to write or at least identify the program goals, right? But if you are involved as a level where you are not responsible with the program's goals, or to identify or to make the program's goal, at least you can identify your program's goal by asking your senior, by asking the administration or the college, or by even looking at the course syllabus that's been in form of brochures given to the students at the beginning of any program, that what are the goals for them to achieve. So if you can write them, it's good. Otherwise, at least you have to select them from the existing ones. So if you once identify the program's goal that specifically relate to the course you are mapping, or you are involved to start mapping, sometimes these program goals are written for you by an accreditation body as well, or a curriculum team. They might have done their job, but now you have to select and identify and at least know and get aware of. And sometimes they need to be written from scratch by a team where you could be also a player. That's why be sure to visit Bloom's taxonomy if the program goals are not yet written for you or for your institution. So you must start with the end in mind. Next system for you is to write or again identify and select from the existing course learning objectives. It again depends at which level you are working and which capacity you have been giving this responsibility. So you must decide what skills, knowledge, or attitude you want the students to achieve by the end of course. So these must be aligned with the program goals. In the case, as we have seen the analogy of this fruit, The stem is what feeds the fruit. And the achievement of the course objectives should provide your learners what they need to eventually achieve as on the name of in the name of program goals. Once you have identified or written the course learning outcomes, course learning objectives, then you have to circle back to ensure alignment with the program goals. So it's a cyclical process. It goes and it goes around, it comes around, like, many steps are like which may give you impression that you have been, like, self-repeating at many places. Sorry, we still have to just see how you have to look for your instruction support materials that you have to work while once you have done your course learning outcomes, program learning outcomes. So you can start to identify again or gather from the existing one, or you may prepare the instruction materials that will assist in your plans and help students achieve the course objectives. This is the information a student will need and might include as a textbook, open educational resource, videos, any supplemental resources could be part of it. Any software or web tools or others could also be part of it. So if you are not yet considering the delivery of the information, but simply the information that is needed, you have to keep in hand. Once you have prepared that particular material, which is called support material, then again you have to circle back to ensure alignment with the previous steps. Now you are reaching to a step where you have to now plan for formative course assessment. For your course assessment part, if you are involved, then fine. But if you are not involved, but you're part of the team, at least you can just get connected with the people who are involved in assessment. Like sometimes we have different lectures for teaching and different faculty is preparing the questions. In some institutes, the people who teach, they are the same people and faculty who are going to, planning and making the exam material for students. So whichever situation you are in, you have to just, see your context, and students, they would be allowed to test the, all their knowledge before actually going deep into their finalistic exams, because this is the formative time now. So what can the student do to check their own progress and allow you to ensure they are on their way to achieving the course objectives? Before summative assessment, formative assessment health is very important position. So after that, you have to just move on to your summative assessment part. And what this all exercise will give you, that you will be able to record and document all these chunks. So later on, you can keep aligning them. And while doing so, while preparing your formative assessment, as we have just learned now, as you are going to have your summative course assessment, even at any point, you have to reflect back. You have to just go and try to catch the tail of the circle, because it's a roundabout. You have to move on and on. And now this is time at the summative time. This is the part where students have to demonstrate their level of achievement actually. So with these all steps, one after another, you have to reach to a level where now you can have in your team, or you yourself could be working as an individual instructor that would be now able to develop map for your own course in real time. But again, even at this stage, you have to now begin with all instructor of particular course working together, because map has to be aggregated. It's not like that you are dealing with one course, you keep your one course, and then you go and just say bye-bye. No, it's a teamwork, and you have to aggregate the map. So next step for you would be as a faculty member to get involved reviewing all the maps in a program, or set sequence of courses one by one. So if the number of faculty members or the number of instructors per course is small in your situation at your institute, so then this can be done as a large group. If not, then there is a suggestion which came into practice by Dr. Jacobs earlier in late 90s. He suggested that create a number of heterogeneous group consisting of those who represent all courses and having these groups for review the particular array of map. They would be looking for alignment gaps, they would be looking for overlaps, they would be also looking for the inconsistencies and also for the strengths of the course, because these strengths you have to just mark and highlight so that later on accreditation body would really enjoy reading those points. Later on, as a later stage, you have to include all faculty members and they all have to focus on identifying areas in need of alignment, where you require revision, where you have to make decisions for elimination of some part of or even sometimes all courses to be eliminated if it's not serving in your that particular mapping. So the group have to prioritize those areas that required attention first, and also then later on those that need further study. So they would be making like a list of preferences, list of priority, that what you want to do first and what you want to do later on. So that particular group that you have founded then would be able to develop a plan followed with actions that you can see in stage number 5. And what is it? It is like process is coming as a full circle. With stage 6, the result is a curriculum that is adaptable, fluid, as a need of student and aligning with the policies of the institution and national policies, and new research findings also, which would be coming in way to work as a future plan for you guys. Now we have reached to this slide where I would like to give you this MCQ, 3 MCQs, that for these you can write the answers in your chat box. Or if you want to just unmute yourself, you want to tell the answers which you think are the correct answer for these 3 questions. So we can give you guys like 2 minutes. I think 2 minutes would be enough for you to. You don't have to write the question in full in the chat box. Simply you can write the number 1 and the answer, number 2 the answer, number 3 the answer. So is there anyone who would like to verbally say and speak about any of the questions, if you want to answer these questions? Anyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes, please.
Yes, sir.
So tell your name, and then if you want to read the question, or without reading, you can say question number 1. I think this is answer. Question number 2. I think this is answer. This way, because this our session is also recorded. So even if you are not writing in the chat box, you don't need to get bothered. You can just simply speak up, and we would record your answer, and later on it would constitute as your continuous assessment. So yes, go on. Who want to be the first one?
Assalamu alaikum, sir. I'm Dr. Kutsia.
Ji, madam, please.
The first question, the various ways in which information can be presented and used is as diverse as professional fields that utilize the mapping process. This is true because information can be quite variedly presented and utilized. Number 2, curriculum mapping is a process that identifies how an existing curriculum aids the development of competency while identifying gaps in areas of improvement. This, I believe, is also true. Number 3, curriculum mapping can be used to map learning outcomes only throughout a single course. It's false.
Okay. So before we comment on your replies, on your answer, we would like to hear from your other colleagues, other fellows. Is there anyone else who want to speak up, or you prefer to write? It's up to you. If you are done writing, all of you, then let me know so that I can just, move on to next slide. Is there anyone who want to speak up? Okay, so I think most of you want to just keep typing and writing. So We just heard
Yes.
closely.
Assalamualaikum, sir.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Sir, I believe the question one is true because the curriculum mapping is not the single information. There are the multiple information and are diverse because they are covering different levels and different content and course, and they are aligned with the learning object are aligned with the course outcome and the program outcome as well. So I think this is diverse information, and this first is true. Second, I think it's also true, but for third, it's no, because the curriculum mapping can be used for the single subject or course, but as a whole mapping is for the whole program, not for the single course. We can use a toss in it, but I think it's fall for the third one.
So if you say that ideally it has not to be like, for only throughout a single code, that this is the word only actually was a clue in this question. When we say only, it makes this question false, right?
False. Yes.
Yes. So the two answers we have just, heard. I think one from Dr. Faraz Noor, and the other was from one madam. That both are correct, and I hope that other your colleagues must also have got the same answers, responses. I mean, and if somebody wants to go and read in more details about the concept which has been presented in these particular questions, you feel free to, just go and read more details. Now we'll move on to the next slide. I hope all of you already have given your answer. It's very important that you all have to put your answer. If you think that you don't know, we have this option, you don't know. So you can select any option. So, but don't leave the question unanswered. Don't leave the questions, go without any responses. Very important because it has to constitute for your markings. So once you have just achieved with your all your theoretical background knowledge that you have kept into practice, and you have just done a great work as a team member, or even if you have just dealt as a supervisor, as a course organizer, head of department, or responsible for that particular course, and now you think that the work done is at this stage now, and you are to look for the confirmation for the getting some assurance about your all struggle, then you should know that what the success must look like. So we have to see that any successful development of curriculum mapping, or any successful curriculum mapping actually indeed has to celebrate the diverse abilities, languages, identities, talents of many different individuals, because definitely there were it's our teamwork. Many people have worked together for it, and many people are the target that would get benefited out of your curriculum mapping. So to make curriculum accessible, again, is very important, or we can say searchable. It's very important if your curriculum is searchable, accessible. So it's a key. It's one of the most important keys that you have kept your curriculum in a fashion, in a way you have prepared that it's searchable and accessible to all stakeholders, and making the content relevant. And for this, you have to select very flexible curriculum. You have to provide cognitive support and multiple ways to learn for students. So it would be accessible for all. It would be usable for all. After searchable, the next step comes to it's usable or not. If usability works, if it works at a very higher level of usability, anybody can use it who is your target, then definitely there's something you have reached to a achievement point. And your instruction, delivering instructions clearly and multiple ways, if achieved, again, you should think that, okay, great, our work is done well. So next step, you have to look for the alignment of the course objective with institutional objectives. Every institution has got mission, vision, all these wordings, and at the same time, once they have got any program, MBBS, BDS, physiotherapy, nursing, or even any other, medical allied courses, medical allied programs, they have got their objectives, they have got their aims. You have to look for alignment of your course objective with that particular institutional objectives. If assessments are misaligned with learning objectives or instructional objectives, it can undermine both. Student motivation definitely would go on declining, and the learning would be compromised. So consider these two scenarios. They are very important. Then gap identification. So if your curriculum mapping is reaching to the point where you have identified gaps, the learning gaps make it difficult, for students to keep up with their peers in the classrooms, or it also negatively impacts their confidence. And so creating a gap analysis, if you are able to get to a clear gap analysis report, it also gives you clue that your curriculum mapping has worked or is working in the right direction. And captivating and convincing, or we can say compelling data for success for our curriculum in meeting our goals. Again, very important that you might have got some data that you can later on show on to someone, you can just share with someone, or even you can just publish, very important articles in high impact journals with that particular data, that what you have done while you are striving to reach to the curriculum mapping, and what data you have collected. And data would be in the form of your all effort that you have put in, like what strategies you have planned in terms of teaching, what methods you have utilized as assessment tools, what course learning outcomes were defined for your particular courses, what program outlook, program objective, program learning outcomes were there, how did you reach to the alignment, what flaws, or what you call this gaps you have identified in the way for creating your particular map. So all these things could just get you to a level where they will nurture, they will flourish in the form of your data presentation in terms of your publications as well. So these things always work great as a scholarly activities as well. That's why we tell everyone should get involved in curriculum mapping process. So here is an example. Actually, it's a real course that we have just started earlier at our university, and we have just defined the core learning outcomes. It's a research course actually that's been taught to this medical student in third year. It's only part of it actually. On the screen, I couldn't get it whole course details here. So these are the only important particular details you can see. So as an example, you can see it here. We have added that particular course we have updated, and we have updated in the process of curriculum mapping last year. And you can see course searching outcomes are present in green fonts, and they are numbered under three main headings. That is, you can see knowledge, understanding, skills, and values. Why we have kept these three headings: knowledge, understanding, skill, and values? Because at our national level, we had in our country here, where I am currently serving, we have got framework. We call it NCSSS framework. That NCSSS framework actually has this is actually National Center for Academic Accreditation and Evaluation. We call it NCSSS. They have just given us guideline that you have whatever program learning outcomes you have related to whatever course learning outcomes you have at the root level, you have to align them with these three main domains. Either your teaching or assessment should be targeting knowledge or skills, or simple the knowledge. I mean, that knowledge, understanding, skills, and values. For knowledge part, we know there's a cognitive part being dealt with in terms of MCQs, with basic some lectures, and then we have some skill procedure skills that we can deal with small groups, and we can have it some practicals later on, some clinical skill labs we have, and these can be assessed by OSCEs, OSPEs, and so on. And then values also. So values are like professional, ethical, behaviors that also what you call it, constitute for the communication skills, interpersonal skills, all these things. So whichever part, whichever content you are dealing at your institution, either has to be aligned with either of these, one of these three main domains. So that's why we call it three main headings. And you can see in next preceding slides, you will see how we have just kept on top first these three main domains, then followed by program learning outcomes, then followed by course learning outcomes. And definitely you will have to appreciate that table that might serve you as well for your template if you want to work on further, you want to develop your own course learning outcomes and to get them aligned with your program learning outcomes. So let's move on. On the right hand side, you can again see they are basic. This is like a course syllabus, you can see, but this all are part of your curriculum plan activity. Whenever you are engaged in this activity, which we are referring it as again as a program, as a curriculum mapping, these are to be part of these all details have to be part of this. In your own way, you can change the way you want to present, but these are to be recorded and documented. On one side, you can have themes, then you have topics, then you have objectives, and and then we have CLOs. Coming to this next slide here, program learning outcomes mapping matrix is presented on the left hand side, and whereas on the right hand side we can see the alignment of course learning outcomes with the relevant teaching strategies and assessment methods. It's very important. These are a step that we have seen earlier in a way which was theoretical details and theoretical background context. Now you are seeing it that how would it look like once you will start working on it. So if you want, you can use these tables also. You can make your own tables on presentations in your own way, but these are to be there, right? So there's a list of suggested teaching method and also a list of suggested assessment method that if you are working as a team, you would require them. Or if you are working as a team leader for curriculum mapping, as an administrator, as a HOD, or as a program director, course organizer, right? You would require your team to know those suggested teaching methods and also list of suggested assessment methods, which is provided in the next slide. Here. Now, this is, you can say, a final spreadsheet, you can say Excel sheet that actually demonstrates that what work has been done for your curriculum mapping. It has got CLOs, it has got all different years courses with their codes. It has to have some more 2 more columns, and due to space we couldn't get it shortage of space here, but I've kept it below. That in next 2 columns you have to keep it and align with that which particular teaching strategy was utilized to get aligned with that particular CLO, course learning outcomes, which particular assessment method or assessment tool, like for instance MCQ or extended matching item or OSCE or short answer question or small group activity or workplace based assessment activity, or in DXR, whatever, or even research project, whichever you have, whatever you have suggested and utilized to target to deal with while you were dealing with one particular type of course learning outcome, you have to mention it there. So later on, this template would really work for you if you are looking for any of you is involved, or if you want to just get inclined towards curriculum mapping, or you'd be at least in a position to convince your seniors, to convince your program directors to have the curriculum get mapped. Or if you are in a position, then you will be able to convince your team leaders, I mean the team members, that how they are going to and what should they do at every step. So whichever capacity right now you are working in, or whichever capacity you are looking for you the next 1 to 2 years in future, curriculum mapping would definitely serve for you as something that if you get your expertise in, it will just really give you edge over all your other colleagues, because this is something that has got many buzzwords in it: course learning outcome, PLO, program learning outcome, alignment. Then you have to have different stages. But believe me, once you get this idea in the simplest form, which we have presented here, actually, I was just looking for extended session that could be dealt with your hands-on practice to prepare your own core curriculum mapping. But it's very difficult due to few reasons. Like, probably you would be having your own course, you are involved in one course, so then you can only keep your course aligned with the course learning with the program learning outcomes and with the national guidelines. If you do not have other courses with you, if you are not leading at the moment for curriculum mapping team, probably it would be very difficult for you to get involved in hands-on working kind of workshop that we could have. Otherwise, I was very much inclined to have something that you people prepare your curriculum mapping, and while doing so, we get engaged, and for different courses you can do it, and we will be just kind of like facilitating you at every stage. So you can again observe that there are very clear guidelines and instructions that your team members, or you yourself, if you're working as a team member, you have to insert the CLOs, the course learning outcomes, that what outcomes should be there for students to achieve when they are at the end of their course. And you have to insert them in the third row and align them with PLOs. Not that all program learning outcomes cannot be actually covered in a single course. Keep in mind, all program learning outcomes, they're the one which are on the top row from number 1 to number 17, can never be aligned, can never be covered with one single course. I don't think so, right? Because many courses deal with procedural skills. Many courses in any year deal with theoretical framework and theoretical background, cognitive level has to be enhanced. So probably it's very difficult to get all program learning outcomes being hit, being target, being dealt with one particular course. That's why we have to get all curriculum. Like if you say map, there's a map of Pakistan. What would you expect? You will expect Pakistan and its provinces in it, right? But if you say it's a world map, right? If you say it's a world map on the screen, it says it's a world map, but that world map only have one country in it. Again, Pakistan. You cannot consider it to be world map, because for world map it has to get other countries get in their place. So again, for curriculum mapping, all course organizers have to work together, because different courses would deal with different learning outcomes. Different courses would get aligned with different program learning outcomes. Different program learning outcomes would get you an alignment with the national framework on the top of it, like we say, knowledge, understanding, and skill and values. So again, one more time to get reminded that R.M. Harden, according to him, the curriculum map is a visual representation of the curriculum, a very sophisticated blend of educational strategies, course content, learning outcomes, educational experiences, and assessment. The education environment and the individual student's personal timetable and progress are also to be part of it. Moving on to our next slide. One more time, I have to just ask you that I was told that probably we would have one salah break, a prayer break in between. So I think in Islamabad, Asr time would start in maybe 10 to 15 minutes. So just, is it true that it will be Asr time in 15 minutes? So we will have like 10 minutes break for you people to perform Asr prayer, because later on, I think we would have 1 more hour to have some little discussion with you guys. So at time of Maghrib prayer, I think Maghrib would be around 7 in Islamabad and in surrounding areas in Pakistan. So that time, I think we would already been finishing our session. That time we don't need to take break. But I think Just can someone just inform me when it's going to be Asr time at your part, so that I can just let you guys have 5 to 10 minutes break. Can someone tell me what would be the Asr prayer time in your area? I think, or we already passed it. I doubt. If you are people are writing in chat box, I'm not opening the chat box actually. So if somebody can tell me, if some coordinator is there to inform me when it is going to be Asr time, so we can have a 10 minutes break, 10 to 15 minutes break.
सर मॉडरेटर का तो नहीं पता
Okay, sure, sir.
डॉक्टर जुबैदा शाहीन जो है वो हमारे ग्रुप की मौलवी है, वो आपको बता देंगे।
कोई भी इन्फॉर्म कर दे जी, मतलब 15 से 20 मिनट के बाद अगर हम एक ब्रेक ले लें 10 मिनट्स का, 15 मिनट्स का, दैट वुड बी आई थिंक फेयर एनफ।
Assalamualaikum, sir. Dr. Arib as a coordinator. सर आप ले सकते हैं 15 मिनट ब्रेक, 15 मिनट के बाद शुरू कर देंगे, कोई इशू नहीं है।
ठीक ठीक है, गॉट इट। If you want to go and grab a cup of tea or cup of coffee, so it will be fine. After 10 minutes, inshallah.
सर 5:10 पे शुरू कर
5:10 पे ब्रेक शुरू करें। This is what you are
नहीं सर, अभी आप ब्रेक
trying to
करना
say,
चाह रहे हैं ना, 5:10 पे दोबारा स्टार्ट कर दें।
नहीं तो ऐसा तो नहीं हो कि असर की नमाज से पहले हम ब्रेक ले लें। असर की अजान
ठीक है सर।
अगर हो जाए तो फिर ब्रेक लेना फिर मौजूद रहेगा, तो ताकि वो असर का नमाज का वो भी इसमें इंक्लूड हो जाएगा, और कोई अगर जाके जो है वो चाय कॉफी लेना चाहता है वो भी बात हो जाएगी। तो मैं ख्याल है अगर हम 10 मिनट के बाद ब्रेक लेंगे, दैट वुड बी अगेन लास्टिंग फॉर 10 to 15 minutes. Is it okay for everyone?
ओके सर।
Okay, let's move on. So now here we are seeing as the principal curriculum inventory system has to be there, but don't get confused with it, right? Not every institute have this inventory system. So many institutes are like looking for some digital, some electronic online based system that serve for them as their curriculum mapping, projection, and for presentation. What do they do? It takes course and program details from program A, program B, or program C, or you may say course A, course B, and course C, and then they all are like whichever work has been done on papers and files, or even with the Word files, or presentations on the Excel sheets, on the computer, or by hand manually on the papers, that have been kept and added. All this data, all details are called data, has been kept in this inventory system. That later on has to be utilized by the institution. Sometimes there are some like third party facilitators. Sometimes they are like outlets. Sometimes there are consortiums that they ask for you for your program details, for your course details. But keep in mind, they never serve you to develop your courses. They never serve you to develop your course learning outcome. They can only guide. They can provide you with some templates, or what do you call this, some forms, right? Or some basic guidelines they can provide. But the main work always has to be done by the main players of the main, what do you call, son of soil, daughters of soil. You guys, you people, as a faculty member or as a team member, or as a leader in the team. So it's also, we can say that development of health profession education curriculum is a time consuming, very time consuming and complex task. At least apparently it looks like one. But education reforms, they also, education reform efforts, they are so encouraging to go to let you go towards development of non-traditional curriculum that use novel, new, innovative methods for teaching and assessments. In many institutions, there is still a push. We can now observe that many institutions, due to the accreditation process, they have got now pushed towards competency-based learning. It's like kind of blessing in disguise. Whichever institute, if you are in an institute, or whichever institute who already have started working on competence-based learning, believe me, their much work is already been done. Because most of the time when the curriculum has been formed, curriculum has been developed, curriculum has been reformed, but the curriculum mapping is not there, they get, objection from accreditation parties or from the governing parties, governing bodies, that you have not got your curriculum aligned in a way that it would what do you call this, flourish or nurture any competency. So what they have to do, they have to just go back again from where they have started. First, they have to define their competency. They have to just make their educational strategies, their teaching, their assessment method, their teaching methods in a way that they should be somehow nurturing to some skills, and that would lead as a competency. So if some institution already, or if your institution already, I'm repeating it again, that already competency based learning is there, if you already have got competency based curriculum now, then you must be very happy. Initially it was very difficult to get your competencies defined. Your work was like in a way that you have just strived, you have put all your effort together to make your assessment in a way that it would be leading to any of the competency that was required from your graduate student or postgraduate student. But if it was done earlier, then they say, a good lather is half shave done. So once you had done it, believe me, you are in a, like, smooth waters now. Because in many institutions, due to the push towards competency-based learning as a cornerstone of curriculum development efforts, it has made their work very smooth. In addition, health professions reform has now mandated, it's mandatory, because health profession reforms are everywhere. It's like mandatory that new content or competencies being integrated into the curriculum, including cultural competencies. Now we talk about professionalism. We don't take everything from West. So their professionalism is something different from our professionalism. Their ethical values could be somehow different. Somewhere it could be matching, somewhere it could be totally different from our context. So when we see the cultural competencies have been in real play, patient safety, team-based learning system, and all these practices, they really has worked well for many of the institutes. And I personally know, even in Pakistan, there are certain institutes, those who have now started working for their own particular professionalism content that they want to make their culture specific, because it's a very quite sensitive topic to go in details. So maybe some other time when we'll have time. So I think after next slide, probably we can take our break 15 minutes, and this slide is also kind of break for you guys. Is anyone available who doesn't know this place? Because this is a very popular, famous place. I guess none of you would be the one who never have visited this place. I hope so. Where is this?
Shangri-La. Shangri-La, sir.
बिल्कुल किन साहब की आवाज सुनी मैंने, जानी पहचानी सी। और कोई? शंग्रीला रिसोर्ट, शंग्रीला लेक, राइट?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
नाम सबको पता है ना, नाम तो सबको पता है। इसका एक और नाम भी है, वो दूसरे नाम से थोड़ा ज्यादा मशहूर है। ये लोअर कचूरा लेक सुना है कभी? ये सब शंग्रीला शंग्रीला बस नाम, फैंसी नाम जो है उसको याद कर लिया सबने। इट्स अ कचूरा लेक AKA शंग्रीला, बिकॉज वो कचूरा विलेज है जहाँ पे ये ना स्कर्दू में, और वो उसकी एलिवेशन है 2500 मीटर्स। शंग्रीला का मतलब क्या, चलें ये बताएं, जो बताएगा शंग्रीला का मतलब क्या है, within 1 minute without surfing internet will get some bonus marks. What is the meaning of word Shangri-La?
Heavenly place.
Yes, okay. It's actually it is heaven on earth. और ये हार्ट शेप जो है इसकी लेक है, तो अब इस स्लाइड पे हम लोग अपना ब्रेक लेते हैं और you guys can perform asar prayer and probably you can have a cup of tea if you want. तो उसके बाद हम लोग का थोड़ा टाइम और होगा, अच्छा थोड़ा ब्रेक मिल जाए सबको. तो right now it's 3 p.m. almost 3, so we can resume 3:15. Everybody would be available again after 15 minutes. Is it okay?
Okay, sir.
Right. So we'll resume back in 15 minutes, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Alaikum. Welcome back.
Alaikum salam.
Are we good to go now? Can start now, right? I hope everybody is back. Hope so.
Yes, sir.
Right. So from Shangri-La, now we have to move on. Bismillah. So actually, a curriculum map can be thought of. I mean, we have to know, na, after all this hardship, that where we are leading to. So what actually it does? What does it do actually? It's a roadmap. Curriculum map is a roadmap of a curriculum. So, and what does it do? It guides its users. And who are its users? Its users are and can be students, faculty members, teachers, curriculum planners, curriculum evaluators, coordinators, and how is it done? How they are being guided? They are being guided through curriculum maps, various elements. So actually, for students, learners, and others, we can say it helps by acting as a discussion starter to promote dialogue about the program's vision and mission. So unless you are not involved in curriculum mapping, you might not have get that particular chance that where you can get into a serious dialogue within your community of teachers about what are the programs, what are your institution's vision, what are your institution's missions are. So this is like a starter point, and it also serves as a planning tool, that now you start to plan something. So first you have to have plan, then you have to have a tool. So it works and serves as a planning tool to identify the connections between curriculum components. While you are getting this tool to utilize for identification of connections, at the same time you are being aware of where actually the components have lost their connection as well. And at the same time, it also ensures that all program standards are developed within the program. So whichever standards program has set for the students, for faculty, all programs are developed. So you get an assurance, you get a confirmation that whichever program, your course, your institution has at a very early level has just anticipated, and now you are reaching to those particular standards. It also helps you identify paths, the ways that learner can follow to get to the graduation requirements. And also at the same time, it provides an overview of all of your curriculum for all, what do you call it, for a total program, for, your main MBBS, BDS program. And then if you have sub-programs leading to MBBS and BDS courses as well. Now, if you are to start, if you want to become part of curriculum mapping team or curriculum mapping pursuit, first you should know that are you ready, or so how do you know that are you ready or not? So for that question, you have to just check at your school, at your college, at your institute, that has the institution embarked, have started, have inclined on a curriculum mapping process yet or not. Then what are the goals for your mapping process? If you are going to start your mapping, what goals you have set? What goals are you setting, or are goals you want to pursue? Challenges, yes, you have to know, you have to anticipate at the beginning. Probably there might not be much challenges for you as for other institutes, but again, you have to enlist them as anticipated challenges. Or later on, there might arise some more challenges as well, but at least you should have some basic lineup for the challenges. You have to make it there, that you anticipate. So it's basically for your help to not to let you get shocked while you are in the process. And for solution, yes, so what solution have you developed? So what is your idea? Where would you look for? And to whom would you look for if you come across some challenge that you have not anticipated earlier but has arisen later on? So how are you going to deal with that particular challenge? And also, how did you train, evaluate, and involve your faculty? So have you already started some basic faculty development courses, some presentations, seminars, workshops, and discussion meetings among your faculty who would be later on involved in this process? Or how are you assessing your mapping projects once the project would reach to its completion, or in between at different levels? So how you are thinking to assess? So what would be your gauge? What would be your parameters that you look for while you will be um, looking your project from, like, a very strict quality check lens? So we can see on left there's some I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. These pointers has to be on your tips while whenever you are preparing a curriculum map, because a curriculum map, while you are involved in developing it, would require from you to assess your needs. The first step in preparing a curriculum map is undoubtedly is to investigate the potential users of the map, the learners, I mean, their needs. And potential users could be others other than the student as well, like curriculum planners, teachers, examiners, administrators, accrediting bodies, and academic researchers as well. Then scope the task. The task of preparing a curriculum may seem overwhelming, right? The rewards of delivering such a map, however, are high, and potential benefits are both compelling and tantalizing. So later on, you would know that whichever effort you have put in and the struggle you have done it are leading you to get to some higher level of satisfaction, the accomplishment, the achievements, all these things would come in your way, and which later on let you get this impression that it was really worth working on it. So later on, you have to, after once you have done the scoping of the task, then you have to establish the link between various elements and constituents, like what comes first, what follows what stage you will do is at the beginning, and how you are to just keep all stages intact. Then you have to designate responsibilities among your colleagues, among your teams, and these responsibilities are not without accountabilities. Anybody can say, okay, I'm responsible for that particular task, I'm responsible for that particular segment of the work while mapping the curriculum, but they have to be what do you call this, informed, and that this responsibility is with accountability. So whatever is the result, they have to just take responsibility for what they have done, either positive or negative. So, and then you have to decide the format of the map is very important, actually. There are some very simple maps, and I must say that with the exception of those simplest maps, the use of paper-based maps is too limiting now, very much limited. That nowadays you won't much see these curriculum maps on papers only. Their usage is very limited, actually. And with the um, coming into play this all technology and online resources and free tools available, free templates available, so everybody just looking for all these things. Initially, it gives the impression that these are not very user friendly, these templates and forms and resources. But once you just start spending some time with them, then later you know that the the time you spend in learning those things to get mastery are really giving you some optimal results in very little time. And you can see the ready-made or ready available, readily developed computing systems and all these software have given the concept of curriculum mapping a new impetus. So nowadays, advances in software have helped us to get a digital presentation of the entire medical curriculum. Whatever format is chosen, whatever format is selected by you, it is essential that that particular map is presented in a way that it's user-friendly. You should not take anything fancy and start just working on it. No, something you should know that it's user-friendly. Probably you are expert in the field. You are related with health professional education or medical allied subject. At the same time, you are computer efficient person, but your team might not be as much as proficient in using computers and all these things. So you have to just look for their level of understanding and level of abilities to deal with computers as well. So later on, you have to think for the past, present, and the future altogether. In designing a curriculum map, it is very important to decide the extent to which the map should reflect the past as well. Because you cannot just start everything from the very beginning at that particular moment. No, you have to just take something from the past. Probably there are some courses that were not aligned. You can utilize those courses. There were some course learning outcomes, objectives were being made earlier by your senior, by your peers that are still usable. So don't discard them all. Just try to be more vigilant in filtering those. So not to take anything that is obsolete, that's not you think later on would be able would be easily aligning with the program learning outcomes. That things could be discarded and replaced by the new ones. For the present course and all these things, yes, you have to work on this. And the future curriculum, that definitely is your target. Later on, you have to decide on access of the map. Like once you will have curriculum map, that who would get access to the map? Because there are different stakeholders, so different stakeholders have to be given access to different parts. That, like for instance, a student should not have the access to those parts. Those are only for the faculty while they are putting their input and where they are refining all these things. So that has not to be given. That access shouldn't be given for those areas. The access shouldn't be given to this one. So a decision needs to be taken as to who has access to map from different what do you call this, map at different stages. In general, access to the map should be open to all potential users, right, within the institution, but with some limitations to some stakeholders. Access to specific sections of some particular parts of the curriculum map, however, may need to be restricted. So keep in mind. So this may include sections where, like for instance, there is detailed information about the content of the student's assessment that has, not to be provided to the student yet, or personal information, for instance, about any individual student, or what do you call it, staff appraisal, because staff appraisal are also sometimes part of the curriculum mapping. So that shouldn't have, the student shouldn't have access to those particular sections. Then you have to familiarize staff and students with the particular map. And it's very important that the best use is made of the map and all appropriate information which is captured correctly for inclusion in the map. To this end, to this stage, it is important to give teaching staff, your administrators and students some ownership of the map. Once they will get ownership, they will get more inclined towards working and providing their contribution. And to provide them with the necessary background information, if you'll give them some necessary background information, that time you have to give them some more ownership. It would let them familiarize with how the map can be used, right? And how the map can be improved, how the map can later on be reviewed as well. So later on, once you have familiarized your staff and students and giving them some ownership, then you have to plan for evaluation and upgradation of the map. It's very important because it's a cyclical process. It has to keep evaluated, keep reviewed all the time, because there will be changes in the curriculum, and it is essential because these changes are like inevitable in the curriculum and at different places. At different, you get some new faculty member who is trained enough to teach student, and he might have been trained in some particular concepts of teaching or methods of teaching or methods of assessment that in at the beginning were not there at your institute. So your institute or you would have to be like, obliged, would be very happy to utilize those expertise of that particular person, that particular faculty. So that time, if he wanted to add something in that particular curriculum, in existing curriculum, yes, you have to allow him. So that's why evaluating, continuous upgradation and updation is very, very important, essential. And that arrangement should be in place to update the maps whenever is necessary. There is one optional point. We can say it's optional, but believe me, now I must say that in the developing countries, this is not an optional point for selection of software platform. It has become like mandatory now. But still, we sometimes we have in our institution some restrictions. There are not much resources, not much funds being provided. So I would still like to keep it as optional, because otherwise, if I say it's mandatory, any student that doesn't have that sufficient funds, such sufficient what do you call this uh, resources or support, financial support, they might think that their student cannot map a curriculum. So that's why I still am not in the favor of keeping this point as a mandatory one. I always say it's an optional point to select a software platform, and choosing the most efficient software is a good first step actually in curriculum mapping. And luckily, there is a dynamic market. Every day there is some new software coming for curriculum mapping. Curriculum mapping software is far more efficient than the Excel sheet, believe me, or Word document. And good curriculum mapping software allows you to catalog and store your map for future use as well. And it should be accessible by the curriculum authors, administrators, and the public as well sometimes. Because, from we consider public, the people, the authority that is beyond, that is outside our institute as well. So, keeping those points in mind, now here we are trying to make you aware of some very important terminologies which you might come across uh, while getting engaged or while performing curriculum mapping. Such terminology still sounds buzzword, but these all are to be learned by heart. They are to be learned well by anyone who is involved and who wants to involve in future in the pursuit of curriculum mapping. For instance, vertical coherence, because there has to be coherence or among all the components of a curriculum. So what coherence should look like? It could be vertical coherence, when a curriculum is vertically aligned, or vertically coherent. It means that what students learn in one lesson or in one particular course or grade level, it prepares them for the next lesson or course or grade level. This is called vertical coherence. The curriculum mapping has got one important aim to ensure that teaching is purposefully structured, right? It's not like something random. It has to be logically sequenced across different grade levels, so that students are building on what they have previously learned and learning the knowledge and skill that will progressively prepare them for more challenging times to come. I mean, in their higher years, the proceeding years. Next we see is horizontal coherence. Whenever, just keep in mind, whenever curriculum is horizontally aligned, if you claim your curriculum to be horizontally aligned, or if you are planning or having intentions your curriculum to be horizontally aligned or horizontally coherent, it means what students are learning in one grade, in one particular subject course, later on in a different grade, that would have to go along again. That would be like adding up their previous knowledge. So curriculum mapping has this also important aim, which ensure that assessments and other methods, the teachings for teachers, they all used to evaluate learning, achievement, and progress is based on what has actually been taught to students and on the learning standard that was gradually improving. And the students are expected to meet in a particular course subject area or what is known as grade level. Later on, we have subject area coherence, and it's very important for you to understand this. So when a curriculum is coherent within a subject area, what does it mean? Simply, you can say that science or research and topic may be aligned both within and across grade levels. So curriculum mapping for subject area coherence, what would it provide? It would provide you to get ensured that teachers are working towards the same learning standards in similar courses. 3 first-year students with some course, foundation course, and that students are also learning the same amount of content and receiving the same quality of instruction across subject area courses when they reach to the next level as well. Then we have interdisciplinary coherence that is not much being dealt in traditional or what you call commonly curriculum mapping strategies being adopted by different institutions, but still few institutions they have now start working on it, what we call the interdisciplinary education, interdisciplinary coherence, where when a curriculum is coherent across multiple subject areas such as uh, medicine, research, surgery, or within one subject area of the medicine, if it's pulmonology or whatever, it may be aligned both within the cross grade levels also. So curriculum mapping for interdisciplinary coherence again would let you focus on the skills and work habits and values that students need to succeed in their academic courses or discipline after finishing their course. So I think now we have few slides more remaining for you before we get to the point where we will be having a discussion about your pre-test things. So we can say that yes, I think this is an important slide, but it's a repeated slide, but better we go before passing it on that at the level, at every level, either you are at the starting point, before starting point, or you are before, during, and after development of curriculum, किसी भी आप stage पे है, so it's responsibility for all stakeholders to keep reminded and to keep asking themselves 3 questions. It's very important ये 4 questions जो हैं ये अपने आप से आप self जो है ना वो questioning करते हैं कि what are we teaching and intend to assess. और ये असल में क्वेश्चन है जो एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन को पूछना है, राइट, और टीचर्स को, व्हाट आर वी टीचिंग एंड इंटेंड टू असेस when we are teaching in it, and when shall be the assessment, उसको भी टाइम फ्रेम होना चाहिए. Who is teaching it and who is responsible for assessment, very important, and how are we teaching and assessing it. So these questions are to be asked by the administrators or the when I say administrator, it means the course administrator actually, right, or the faculty involved in teaching and assessment. So there comes the question. Similarly, there are a set of questions for students which are to be answered very honestly, that what am I learning at the moment and what am I learning or expected to learn it. I mean, when I'm expected to get my hands on this particular skill or particular knowledge in a fashion, a way that I would be considered not only the novice, but at least on the mid level of my expertise on who is teaching it. I should know as a student, and who is being taught, how it is being taught, and how I will be assessed. What would be the marking system? What would be the assessment tools utilized for that particular piece of knowledge that I have gained in my yesterday's lecture or my today's lecture or today's small group activity, and show competency that I have learned it. How is my performance and where do I need improvement? So again, so you have to know that what actually is your purpose of getting engaged. with the curriculum mapping. I mean, if you want to start mapping your curriculum, you have to know that what is your actual purpose. There could be very few, or there could be a long list. There could be as many purposes as you select at your institution, where it all depends on your institution's vision and mission as well. For example, someone can have a purpose as simple as looking for an opportunity for educators to review the curriculum to check for unnecessary redundancies only, or for checking for inconsistencies, or checking for misalignments, or checking for weaknesses or gaps only. This could be also one purpose. But the more explicit your purpose is, the more practical your purpose is, there are more chances that you will have a better curriculum mapping. Other reasons may include, for instance, but not limited to, for instance, like you want to document the relationship between the required components of the curriculum, how they are aligning, and what is the relationship. I mean, if some student has gone through foundation course, now later on he has to go for the advanced as well. It should not the other way around. And the intended student learning outcomes also has to be in a way that at their particular level in first year, they can simply achieve it. They can demonstrate their proficiency in those particular learning outcomes that are being set for him. Or you wish to help identify opportunities while looking at while making your curriculum map. So this could be also one of your purpose of starting to work for your curriculum mapping. I will repeat it again, that help identify opportunities for integration among disciplines, because this is talking about this point talking about the alignment as well. Or perhaps you want to provide a review of assessment method, and someone may also like to identify what students have learned actually, right? It's also important that what student has learned at that particular point. Otherwise, it will go all into vain. So this also allows educators to focus on building on previous knowledge of their learners. So basically, while you are at the while you're starting your curriculum mapping process, purpose has to be very clear. Purposes are to be very explicit. But at the same time, don't go for the complex purposes. Right? Whatever purpose you have, you should think that you have to keep in mind the available resources. You have to keep in mind the available opportunities for you to work for, the timeline, and the staff with you. Is the staff ready for just putting their contributions and extend, and are they happy? Are they having intentions? Are they voluntarily ready to work? No, it's not something that you can impose on them. Like, they have to volunteer all their contributions, so they have to extend the helping hands on their own personal will. So that would help you get your purpose filled, right? So that's why it's very important to have clear, explicit, simple but a specific purpose. It has to be detailed, it has to be explicit, it has to be as many as you want, because it depends again on your skills, on your team's abilities, on your resources, as well as it also depends on the length of objectives and aims, list of objectives and aims of whichever been put in place by the hierarchy at your institution. So at this stage, now a question may arise that how shall I start mapping the curriculum, or what shall I get? जो भी start करेगा, तो definitely, I mean, these questions have to arise in the mind. That so on one part we can call it a framework, on the other hand we have outcome. So every framework has to get some to a level where we shall get some outcome out of it, right? So answer your question number one, you have to have aims, a list of teaching sessions, and valid and reliable assessment strategy. If you have all these things, you can start working on your curriculum map. So this is your framework. Once you have got your framework in your hand, you can really start. On the other hand, to answer your question number two, as we have seen from the literature, it is suggested that you will get evidence-based curriculum, number one, and you will get a great opportunity for having an insight, detailed insight into actual learner activities कि हो क्या रहा है हमारे स्टूडेंट के साथ, वो कौन से लेवल पे है, उनकी एक्टिविटीज किस तरह से जो है ना वो कॉन्टेक्स्ट जो है मेडिकल का, मेडिसिन का या सर्जरी का या whatever subject you are dealing with, उसमें वो fulfill कर रहे हैं properly उस चीज को या नहीं, उनको need है भी या नहीं at that particular level. And the most importantly, you will be able to get all stakeholders on board. It's very important, you know, getting stakeholders on board. So don't get confused with the aims and objectives. Sometimes they are being used like, you know, interchangeably, but in broader manner, we see that aims are actually general statements which you make concerning your overall goals or intentions of teaching. On the other hand, objectives are the individual stages that learner must achieve on the way in order to reach to these goals. So aims or objectives में थोड़ा सा slight thin line of difference does exist. These words are sometimes synonymous, but they do have slightly different meanings. So, and we can also say goals and aims are interchangeably used, and it's fine. And they are actually abstract ideas. And we can say the aim is what you hope to get or what you want to do, right? But it may take a long period of time. Whereas target and objectives, the exact results of what you want to get. So these targets and objectives are something that tell you exactly the results of what you want to get. In a nutshell, your framework and the outcome that is shown in this particular slide here, it would help you, it will enable you for I can say like 100% of posting of the curriculum. अगर आपके पास ये है एम्स ऑब्जेक्टिव्स है, आपका टीचिंग भी थे, आपका असेसमेंट भी थी, अब आपने एविडेंस बेस्ड करिकुलम मिल गया, आपको इंसाइट भी हो गई लर्निंग एक्टिविटीज की, आप कामयाब हो गए टू गेट द पीपल ऑन बोर्ड with you. So this particular moment, you are sure that you are able to post your curriculum 100% because you have got all material in hand. Unless you get all material in your hand, you will not be able to just, you know, make it accessible to any other party, any other stakeholders. And at the same time, accurately tagging of each learner activity would be achieved. क्योंकि आपको सारे ही learning activities में insight मिल गई है, so you accurately you can tag each learner's activity and ability to report to the stakeholders. You are now, you know, getting to a level where you feel that you have ability to report your curriculum to all stakeholders, and this is a really milestone that you can say that you or a benchmark later on could be done at this stage also. So again, continuation with the previous slide, we can see that if you call it the big picture looks like what? Course, all subject objectives are with you. You have got like any teaching session, any teaching activity at your college or at least in your particular course has got objectives, and these objectives work well with you at the time of your assessment as well. Because, you know, if any of us goes to have a lecture, to have a session with any class at any level and at any year for any course, if we are not having objective as the first slide of our lecture, our presentation, later on, when you will make questions out of that particular content that you have taught in that particular time, later on, student might have some objection, and if they are not so empowered, at least they'll feel in their self that the particular slides doesn't show anything that later on came up in the exam. They might object. But if you have objective with you later on, you can reply to them, you can respond to them that these slides that I've shown were not the content to be examined. They have got objective slides. The first slide was of objective slide. So these objective work between you and between your student as a bridge, as a contact. So later on, they would know that they have to achieve these objectives. The slides particularly are like, for your own remembrance in the lecture. It's not for student to just, get them, what do you call this, memorized by heart, and later on they see in exam is little different, the wording is different, terminology is different. So basically the objective, if you have in your presentation, if your colleagues, your team has in presentation, in your lecture, any activity, teaching educational activity, this serves well. Lectures, and it works for lectures, for TBL, problem-based learning, every elsewhere as well. And how do objectives, content, assessment fit together? So in big picture, you can see that how your objectives with the contents are aligned with assessment, aligned with the competencies, and so on. That's why we call them a big picture of curriculum mapping. And just to remind you again that after a few slides, we are going to have our discussion with you people, with you guys, on the pre-test segment. And hopefully these all slides, at least few of them, has something very, what do you call this, or something very pertinent to those particular questions that have been raised in the earlier slide for your pre-test question. Actually, these all have got somehow some link, but few slides really were directly addressing the question that been posed in for you as the pre-test quiz actually. So once curriculum is in hand, the process has been done. Now what you have to do, you have to implement it. So implementing implement process will address three critical questions: that who is doing what. I told you that you might feel there's some same question, same components being repeated, and this is because at every level we are reviewing, at every level we are trying to get alignment, at every level we are addressing the competencies and so on. So we have to see that who is doing what. We will be able to know, and we will be able to know how does the work align with the teacher. To implement curriculum effectively, I must say, if you want to implement a curriculum effectively, staff must understand how to use it, use this curriculum map responsively and intentionally with their own positive intention, right? So programs must develop a system of training and professional development that would support education staff in their efforts, who are inclined to contribute, and support to staff is very essential actually, because it, number one, develops educational staff knowledge, it develops educational staff or faculty's skills for the implementing of the curriculum. It would help to focus on developmentally appropriate and sufficiently rich content and skills that would definitely contribute to the learner's development later on across the developmental domains. And last but not least, focus, like on the content. The focus would be on the content and skill that would support learners' development in a specific domain. And it will help you to monitor curriculum implementation and fidelity by collecting and using data that you have in your hand as a part of a continuous improvement process that can be termed as a review process actually. So before we reach to our two more last slides, I think this is again a little break for you guys here. If somebody can see it, because it's very easy to identify, I guess. This area, this location, definitely, at least if you have not visited this place, I'm sure you would identify it from its shape, I must say. Any answers?
Pyala Lake.
Right. Anybody else? Where is it located actually?
Pakistan, sir.
Any more answers? Anyone disagrees? प्याला लेक, प्याले जैसी उसका शक्ल है तो इसी वजह से दैट्स व्हाई इट्स कॉल्ड प्याला लेक. कहाँ है, किधर ये? आई थिंक नियर कागन वैली, राइट, इन मानसरा डिस्ट्रिक्ट, केपीके. How much is it away from Naran? Any idea? भाई कोई तो घूमने गया होगा, आप लोग फेलोशिप में इतने मगन हो गए कि आई मीन
1400 kilometers.
1400 kilometers from Naran? No way.
I thought you were asking about Karachi.
No. From Naran. Because whenever we call its name, we say यार ये नारायण के करीब में एक लेके जरूर जाना. तो नारायण से कितना किलोमीटर है? It's just 40 kilometers actually. Very near
150,
to
sir.
Naran. 40 kilometers from Naran. Make like how many miles? Maybe 20 to 25 miles? Yeah, 25 miles. Right. कोई गया है यहाँ पे घूम के आए कभी? So you guys don't go and chill out, right? You spend all your time with completing your fellowship. I know this fellowship programs needs to be dedicated and, you know, consuming all your time, but sometimes you should just hang around and move around. भाई कोई ऐसा है जिसने विजिट किया हो यहाँ पे? अगर कोई हाँ कहेगा उसे कुछ नहीं कहा जाएगा. कोई नहीं गया है आज तक.
सर कोई
वाह,
विजिट करने देता नहीं.
अल्लाह अकबर. कोई नहीं जाता. चले जी, जब मौका मिले तो इंशाल्लाह जरूर जाइएगा. You'll definitely will enjoy the serene surrounding there actually. Thought the difficult is very difficult to reach there, not difficult if you have got 4x4. So now coming back to our work here, like if we take as an institute as a what do you call this, main stakeholder, on the other hand, institution, when we say institution, it carries the faculty, the administrators, all these main players there. On the other part, we see learners, right? So we are having now two ends, two extreme ends. So basically alignment जो है वो जितनी भी इन चीज़ों में हमने की उसमें एजुकेशनल मटेरियल था, उसमें आपके एम्स ऑब्जेक्टिव, आपके इंस्टीट्यूट के प्रोग्राम्स के, आपके नेशनल लेवल के एम्स ऑब्जेक्टिव प्रोग्राम लर्निंग आउटकम से, आपके इदारे के इंस्टीट्यूट के, देन यू हैड गॉट coming down to the level of course, then you are coming down to the level of your educational activity. These all is encompassed in circled in institution stakeholder. The other stakeholder we have on the right hand is the learner. So for institution requirements, they may include, but I would again say are not limited to trained faculty. Requirement की बात हो रही है, ठीक है? Trained faculty, requirement for curriculum mapping work. Trained faculty, resources to implement teaching and assessment tools. You have your tools, but is the faculty ready? Are the resources like in good shape to be implemented while dealing with the teaching and assessment tools? Yes or no? This is very important. Then we are coming on the learner side. So learner ability, we shall at this stage now be assured what professional competence, for example, you must have heard this word like maybe few of you, interestable professional activity. सुना है ना किसी ने भाई? EPAs बहुत आजकल मशहूर है. What do? They had a competency based curriculum. So interestable professional activities are tasks or responsibilities, or whenever any curriculum at any institution is competence based, there are these interestable professional activities to be dealt with. So what are they actually? So professional activities, interestable professional activities, or in the short form we say EPAs. These are tasks or responsibilities that faculty entrust for any of their trainee to execute unsupervised. Once he or she, I mean the trainee, the learner, has obtained adequate competence. And these are executable within a given time frame. These are observable. These are measurable. And these are again suitable for focus, interest decisions making. So we can say these are units of works. These could be pertaining to the knowledge, this could be pertaining to the professional attitude, this could be pertaining to the communication skills. For example, if somebody is dealing with anesthesia course, so anesthetic care of an patient who is not having any complications, so like any uncomplicated patient having anesthetic care would be dealt well by any competent training while he or she is not supervised. So by the way, we all know that competencies remain theoretical if not grounded in practice. तो हम उनको theoretical part पे ही रखेंगे तो वो अपनी height पे नहीं आएंगे जब तक हम उनको practice में judge नहीं करते. That's why these are very important. So knowing it, that what are your needs as an institution or at your institution, or what are your needs, what are your learners need, or you, if you are learners, what are you as a learner need while being involved in curriculum mapping was dealt in the previous slide. Now we can see here that you have to have a very common language. So terminology has to be, agreed upon across the institute, across the team, who is working in your curriculum mapping work. For instance, we can say phrases होते हैं उसमें कि year of curriculum है, कौन सा है, उसमें आपके blocks हैं, आपके जो teaching blocks हैं, teaching strategies हैं, teaching session activities हैं, sequence blocks हैं आपके, इसमें course unit block होते हैं, clerkship वगैरह में वो count होते हैं, वो sequence block कहते हैं. Then we have events, for assessment or for educational instructional events, and that are the actual assessment or instructional sessions. And they have to have title, as we already discussed the objectives. Every teaching or instructional or assessment session have to have objectives, titles, duration, a specific duration, description, keywords, expectations. These would be for faculty as well as for the students. Instruction or assessment method and the resources also. And last but not least, expectations in terms of your competency and level of objectives that are to be achieved. That would be marked again as a milestone. And for example, we call them EPA, and we just have heard about what was EPA. So now if you want to really come into play, then you have to start homogenizing or standardizing, which is the first task. For homogenizing, for standardization, what you have to standardize, what you have to homogenize, you have to homogenize vocabulary. Similar vocabulary has to be used from the beginning to end. Even your team member, if you are leading a team, your team member should be aware of the vocabulary you are going to use in written format or verbal format. It could not be like you are calling a course as a block and he is calling as a course as a sequential segment, because later on you have to add it up in your documentation in a similar way. So I would take just only 1 minute break. Somebody is on the door. Only 1 minute, please. Now we are resuming. I'm sorry for the inconvenience. So once you have started working towards your goal, you have to homogenize vocabulary, as we have just discussed, grouping, classification, which level, which stage, classification and sub-classification stages of the different course area that you have already discussed and get agreed on. And later on, you have to have an interface of the design. So what would it look like? It would have to have input and output. Like, if you are having like on paper, you can start working on the papers, but for the output, again, electronic online resources, for instance, your Excel sheets for your forms and all these things, even the paper, if you're working as for your manual type of work, you have to use it. Then you will be able to export, like this is something that's provided to the learners, and it's very important. And last but not least, starting with the vocabulary, ending would be the map. Then you'd be able to illustrate and visualize, which could be, or but not limited to, form of tables. So after dealing with all these slide, at least now we should know that why is it so important to have a curriculum map? What is its significant? What is its significance? Why is it significant for? So we all might agree that curriculum mapping actually, it not only it improves course alignment, because we have been working towards alignment and we were discussing a lot about alignment between course learning objectives or course learning outcomes with program learning outcomes with national level competencies, all these things. But at the same time, I must say, not only improves your course alignment and articulation, but also it promotes a supportive collaborative culture actually, right? Which is actually required at every institution, because it really enhances the learning of all stakeholders. It enhances the achievement of all learning stakeholders, because once you will have a supportive collaborative culture at your institute, that would run long way for the betterment of your individual betterment, as well as the betterment of your institute, of your program as well. And the credibility would be heightened as well of your institute. And once the credibility of your institute is heightened, it really is like a effect that reaches to you as well as an individual. So there are, again, like every other effort, every other educational endeavor, there are potential challenges that you might think, or you might not even gauge, but they might come to your way. That could be like lack of resources, lack of leadership vision from the administration. Defining smart competencies and performance standards for each discipline are very challenging, undoubtedly. And the training of faculty, if they are not ready to get trained, or if you are not having ample time, or if you are not having what do you call this, a free what do you call this, I mean, if you're not giving what do you call this, space, if you're not giving like academic space from your administration, so probably even if you are you are intending to train your faculty, but you are not being supported by the administrator, faculty development program would not go a long way. And that is actually required for writing learning objectives and writing quality exam questions as well. So again, data entry is indeed very, very time consuming. And we can say the updating of the map, that's very much important at the time of reviewing of the update. Reviewing of the map, it has to be updated, and updating of the map helps you keep the system current, and it also ensures that the system changes as the curriculum evolves. So do you think, would you guys like to add anything more, that how or what any further challenge could come into your way when you are trying to work towards mapping your curriculum? Anything else that you think is not in this list could be a potential challenge? Anyone? You can mute yourself, unmute yourself, and speak up. You think there could be some more potential challenges if you are already involved in teaching and learning process, so probably you can get to that point. Is there anyone who can tell that, is there anything else that is not in this list as a potential challenge for curriculum mapping, or even for any educational endeavor if you are trying to bring up at your institute? No one? Do you think this list is explicit, right? How about resistance from the peer or from senior colleagues? Have you ever experienced it? Have anyone of you ever experienced any peer resistance or resistance from seniors while you are trying to update anything, when you're trying to modify anything? No one so far? Have you ever been involved in teaching and learning activities so far at your departments, at your institutes? I could not
Yes, sir.
hear. Yes. I don't want to know the details, but I just want to listen yes or no. So there been any resistance to your any endeavors that you wanted to bring up to change the system while you're dealing with teaching and learning? So yes, there was, right? Okay, it's but natural. Why I try to just bring that point up would be dealt in next slide actually. So don't worry if we have all these challenges, or few of these challenges we have, like they're very popular and famous set of steps actually by Kotter, and he has just given us in 2007 a list of 7 steps that are shown here, and they are really proven. They have shown proven results and efficacy in challenging times. So do try these all whenever, or do try some of these whenever and wherever required. Even if you are in the realm of bringing it up, curriculum change, curriculum reform, curriculum development, curriculum mapping, whatever, or even while you are trying to suggest something new for your teaching educational endeavors. And what does it say? It says that you have to establish a sense of urgency, that you have to give this impression to your colleagues, to your seniors, that there is something very much urgently required. And if you have guiding coalition, that again serves well. And you have to create a vision to tell the details about that particular thing, and then you have to communicate the vision. And if you want to take others contribution, you have to empower others also to act on the vision. Plan, very important for you to plan and create short-term wins, because if you start with something that is like long-term winning goals, that might give impression that it's something very complicated, and later on consolidating improvements and produce more changes every time you keep moving on. You have to just keep more changes and institutionalize new approach. Whichever thing you have learned, you have just get your hands on, try to just make it happen in your institution. That is so important. So this is the summary point. I want you guys to read this summary point, so that later on, after this particular slide, we will start our discussion for our pre-test. So without a further ado, we would now move on to our yes, before reaching to that particular slide, I just want to give you impression that how digitally and the technology enhanced electronic curriculum mapping might look like. And it does look complicated, but once you will be involved, you'll feel that all these color segments and being the arrows going from towards whatever is telling you what. So coming to a review of pre-test quiz. Are you guys ready to discuss what you have just written down as the answer to your questions?
Yes, sir.
Can anybody would everybody like to start first? So there is simplest way we can do this session, do this segment, deal with this segment, that one by one you guys just unmute yourself, tell your name, and simply respond to the quiz that was shown to you at the very beginning of this particular session today. And you are given full opportunity, full luxury to take notes from the current session, even from the resource material that was sent to you, you are allowed to use whatever content, whatever segment you want to use from those particular resources or from the current slides. Who would like to start first? Because I want to finish the session on time. I think if 2 to 3 minutes are given to every participant, I think we can finish it in
Assalamu alaikum,
maybe.
sir. So,
Assalamu
Dr.
alaikum.
Kudsiya.
Yes, please.
Sir, there's a slight of internet connection problem all over Pakistan, and you being our facilitator and even the morning facilitator, both the lectures were audible with a lot of difficulty. So my suggestion for today's session as well and for the upcoming sessions is that if the facilitators use the headphone with wired built-in mic, that would enhance sound quality.
Right.
It was if your sound was loud enough, it would have been even more engaging. The topic, the content,
Definitely,
the
definitely.
entire session was very good. The presentations, they were it's very obvious how much effort you have put into the presentation, and the content indeed was very good, but it would have been even better if your sound was a
I
bit more loud and
I
bit
agree.
more audible to us.
I agree. Just noted for the next upcoming sessions. So if I had been told this earlier, I could have just, start using my headphone and mic. It's okay. But I was just thinking to just, spend like 2 minutes for every participant if they can just, come up and be vocal and tell other option for me is also suitable, that if all participants later on just, either send their answer to in the chat box shared in the chat board, or they, if they can email to you these answer, probably it would serve for their continuous assessment, formative assessment. So it would also give them a feeling that they were really, like, on board today with us. So this is my reason, this is my intention actually, for asking for them to come up and speak up, or if they want to share in the chat box their answer,
So,
that
sir,
is quite fine.
the statements that you have given, are we supposed to mention true and false about them?
No, actually, I had slide. I think, let me get back to that particular slide. There were 4 questions in that slide, and the title or heading of the slide was pre-test quiz. If they can, because I have asked them to write down these questions, so later on they can answer me for these 4 questions. So I would be happy even if they are sending by email. There are 4 answer to 4 questions to you, to the course organizer. These are the questions actually. Is it visible to you, this slide, pre-test?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Yeah. So,
So, sir, curriculum is basically a network or a framework of the entire planning of an educational program. We start with what is our expected outcome from the course, or what is the end product that we are aiming, and then how we want to achieve that outcome. So that would include the curriculum, the syllabi, the timeline, the formative assessment, the summative assessments, if any, and mode of education. For example, for hands-on skill-based education, you cannot just carry out the theoretical stuff. So there needs to be a curricular alignment. So curriculum is all about everything that surrounds a course is curriculum.
right? Correct.
And curriculum mapping, basically, once we have developed a course, or even if after a lot of practice, when we are planning a curriculum, so curriculum mapping will help us in achieving the curricular alignment, so that our desired the outcome is tailored according to what effort we should put in. So it is intended to identify any gaps or loopholes which we might have missed in the earlier phase. So it's
Correct.
basically a means to achieve curricular alignment.
Definitely.
So
Absolutely
that
right.
also answers the third
Absolutely
question.
right.
The potential challenges for mapping the curriculum could be, one thing is that if we go back to our years of MBBS education, I'm a graduate of 2005. So we are basically, graduates of traditional methods of teaching. And one big, I think, obstacle then was that the teachers were not, they were having no idea of the principles of teaching and learning. And the other problem was resource constraints. So curriculum mapping can be halted when there are there is a resource constraint or inadequate training of the faculty.
Yes, definitely. Right. So you see, now we have heard from one of your colleagues all answer to these 4 questions. So I was just, thinking to have option A or B. Option A is like the other participants may also just, take like 2 minutes or 3 minutes. I think you have probably taken only 3 minutes, 2.5 minutes to complete all these 4, to complete answer to these 4 questions. If other participants are also inclined in a way following your example, they could speak up and tell and speak the answer, reading from their points, that whichever point they've made on their papers, on their document, whatever document they have in the hand, or soft copy, or the mobile, or whatever. Or they can simply send their answer in the chat box. Or option C, they can send the answer to these 4 questions to the course organizer later on, within next 24 hours, next 48 hours. I don't mind whichever time frame you want to give to them, so that you should receive answer from all of them. So these are 3 options. Whichever you guys would like to follow, I'm good with it. So guys, I'm sure you are still awake. If you want to just choose option A, B, or C to deal with this pre-test quiz, it's a very simple thing, but I want you to get engaged actually. I hope everybody can hear me.
There are internet issues in Pakistan mainly. So I think the third option is a better option. Because maybe there will be hindrance in the continuity of the.
I totally agree. I totally agree. The course coordinator, I think, with us, she might have noted this point, and they would be happy to get your emails later on with these answer to these 4 questions. So before we end our session, do you have anything to discuss? But let me ask something that I didn't ask at the beginning. I should have asked it very earlier while initiating my talk today. That is there anyone who is actively engaged in teaching and assessment or assessment? Is anyone among today's participants is actively engaged in teaching or assessing the students? Or no one?
Most of us are, I think, engaged in postgraduate training and learning.
Yes.
And yes, sir.
This is what I assume. So have you ever been involved in curriculum development or curriculum reforms or curriculum mapping? Anyone? I just want to hear anybody's experience if somebody already have done so.
Sir, the curriculum of CMH Lahore Medical College was revised in 2020, and entire faculty was sent the copy to review that curriculum year by year, and they had welcomed any suggestions that anyone found any deficiency or additions.
Great. So people from CMH already know much of what we have talked about. Yeah, Walaikum Salam. Ji.
Sir, I am in CMH Medical College. I'm from Basic Science Department, Forensic Medicine.
Right.
हमारे लेवल पे तो हमें आई एम असिस्टेंट प्रोफेसर इन द डिपार्टमेंट. तो ये करिकुलम डेवलपमेंट का वो आता तो है मॉड्यूल, इनका जो मॉडल होता है नम्स की तरफ से, यूनिवर्सिटी की तरफ से. उससे फिर ये इनपुट लेते हैं हमारे से कि आप कैसे इसको इंटेग्रेट करना चाहते हैं, किस तरह आप बेसिक साइंसेज को हॉरिजॉन्टल वर्टिकल अरेंजमेंट करना चाहते हैं, कि अगर वो फार्माकोलॉजी में अगर पढ़ रहे हैं सीएनएस की ड्रग्स, तो आप फोरेंसिक में हमारे सब्जेक्ट से रिलेटेड जो सीएनएस की इंजरीज हैं या हेड इंजरीज हैं या कोई अल्कोहल इंटॉक्सिकेशन या कोई ऐसे पॉइजन जो सीएनएस को इन्वॉल्व करते हैं, आप उसको इसके क्लिनिकली को रिलेट करके यहाँ से हमें आउटकम देंगे आप। उनके साथ साथ वो चीज़ें चल रही हैं इस तरह से जो आपने बताया है करिकुलम मैपिंग के अंदर, तो वो अपना इनपुट तो हमारा तो वो सिर्फ वो लेते हैं कि आप क्या चाहते हैं, किस तरह देख सकते हैं, लेकिन वो सीएन जैसा आपने कहा था वो तो ऊपर वालों को होता है कि किस तरह से वो
जी
ऑर्गेनाइजर्स हैं वो जो
राइट
डिसाइड करते हैं। लेकिन एक हमने देखा हुआ है इसको सीएमएच में ये काफी करते हैं इसमें, नम्स यूनिवर्सिटी जो है काफी इन्वॉल्व रखती है सबको सिक्योरिटी।
जी okay, yeah, it's good to hear that you people are involved. So, because basically, whatever effort any facilitator can put into providing you with the presentation, with the cognitive load and whatever, but unless you people are not involved in doing it, like practicing is a thing that's very necessary for you to grasp the complete whole picture actually. Otherwise, theoretically you will be well adept, and later on you'll forget everything very fast. So I
जी
would
सर, जी
suggest
सर।
that whichever institute you are in, or if the institute already being practicing these strategies of dealing with the curriculum mapping, curriculum development, or with the curriculum designing or whatever, and if you are being given this opportunity, initially you might feel hesitant, but believe me, once you are doing it, because these are scholarly activities, you have to have it later on. If you want to look yourself at a very high level, higher position, an administrative position, so you cannot be at that position unless you get your hands on with these things. So keep practicing whenever you get any opportunity. Don't feel that don't feel
Yes.
threatened, because uh, the hardship that comes to you would later on give you the achievements of very high level as well. So simple things you will learn, you will do, you will get your simple achievements, and the higher levels, higher status has to be taken after getting from different what do you call this, difficult ways. So whenever you get chance, whenever you get opportunity, whenever you think that you can get involved in these kind of activity, and definitely you have to one day get involved in, because once you have decided to get fellowship in health professional education, so there is nothing that you will learn theoretically that later on you would not require to practice it. So whichever thing you are learning in these sessions are really just making your foundation only, but the flowers, the flourishing and nurturing of the plant is in your own hand. So try to get involved as much as you can wherever possible for you, which because I know the time constraints and everybody is very busy, but still, whenever you get some time, try to get involved and try to learn by doing. That would serve you most. So with these words, and we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for today's session has been completed, and I wish to see you guys in some other session very soon, inshallah. And I pray for all of you to learn more and more, and I pray that these sessions through this faculty, through this fellowship program, through this fellowship course are beneficial for you, for me, and for other facilitators as well. At the same time, the people who would be taught by you later on would be get benefit as much as you have taken benefit today, inshallah, bismillah. So with these words, we conclude our today's session. Once again, I thank you all for being here. I know on Friday it's very difficult, and everybody has got like family assignments, tasks, and it's not an easy thing to hear someone talking for 3.5 hours almost. So you all have been very passionate listeners, and I thank you all for your being so kind to hear me all these long hours. So, Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. See you again. Allah Hafiz.
Thank you, sir. Allah Hafiz.
Thank you, sir.
Walaikum
Thank you very much.
Assalam.